Greetings, housemates, and welcome to Learn to Play Endless Legend. I'm Phwop, and this is an advanced Necrophage game of mine where I wanted to show you some large-scale combat, introduce to you some of the mechanics that are difficult to understand until you get a taste of them in the game. So we are assaulting the well-fortified city of Lethe with an army, two armies actually, composed primarily of necrophages with a couple of the battleborn. Those are the units created by the proliferators. We are in era 5. So we've got a few in-game technologies and everyone's well equipped, and we've got a really powerful level 8 hero. So let's take a look at this in the zoomed out graphical mode. So bunches of forest. This is a 3-district city, and you can see our hero is here, and there's another hero here who's going to back him up. Now the reason we can tell they're going to back him up is if I select this hero and then I hold down right click and I hover over where I'm going to attack, it'll show you an outline of the combat zone. So everything within that gray border is going to get a piece of the action if you want them to, or if the enemy wants them to. If there are enemy heroes within this grayed out zone, this border, then they would be able to participate in the battle. Same for friendly units or other armies. So this is a good way to know if you're going to end up with that militia helping you out when you attack a neutral or whatnot. Now, whoever you initiate the attack with, of course, is going to be supported by the other hero. So the other hero's army is going to come in 1 unit a turn from reinforcement points, starting with a number of units on the first turn equal to your reinforcement points. That's one of the reasons why having more reinforcement points, which is a skill many heroes can get, can let you really funnel units on the battlefield really fast. Otherwise, you have to wait. All right, so let's go at it. First, let us turn on the interface. Okay, so you'll note that there are 5 units inside the city. We can't tell what they are, but this includes militia. It's probably got 2 or 3 militia and then 2 or 3 other units, depending. The other important note is that it has Fortification 520. So when the city is attacked, any unit defending it will have this fortification taking damage first. And when it's down to 0, the unit will start to lose actual health. At the end of the battle, the city's fortification is reduced by the total fortification lost, divided by the number of units using the fortification bonus on the defensive side. Okay, the way fortification works is every unit, each of these 5 units, will get 520 bonus health. Right? Whoa, that's like 2,500 extra health. Note that my whole army's total health is like 3,000 something. So fortification is great, and it's multiplied by the number of units you have in the garrison. It's not that it's 520 divided by 5, it's 520 each. So if we don't completely wipe out the city, what happens is it says I put in 2,500 fortification points. This is what the game's going to compute. 2,500 points were assigned to these 5 units. If, say, 3 of these units died and 2 were completely undamaged, then it'd be like, all right, so I lost 1,500 fortification points, and it's going to reduce the amount of fortification on the city by 3/5, basically. So it is, yeah, that's a way to quickly burn down fortification. Now, you can siege, and when you siege, basically, we'll do a whole tutorial for that, but siege can cut down on fortification. If the fortification is really high, my army will do 43 fortification damage per turn we're sieging them, down to 0. And then once they have no fortification left, it will actually do 43 damage to each of their units every turn. So sieging can actually outright kill everything inside of there, but it won't give you the city even if they have no defenders. You have to keep an eye out and attack whenever you think you're ready. It'll even say 0 here, and you'll keep sieging it. Notably, sieging also gives you 4 extra XP per turn, which is pretty good if you need to train up a hero. Alright, so let's get to the actual fight. We're going to attack them. They have this 520, and we'll see how it goes. So we right-click here. We're just going to straight up attack. Okay, here are their 5 units. They've got 3 shifter militia and 2 orcs. We, of course, have a whole squadron of things. And I'm going to set it to offensive and manual, and we're just going to let it go. Note, I do have timers turned on, so you get 30 seconds for each of your decisions. And every other turn is completely automated. I have it set to advanced. Because I think it's more challenging and interesting, and it forces you to learn how to use the AI of the game better. These fights, note that when you have a timer on, these fights will start without you if you are not paying attention. So we're just going to let the timers run down. Remember that you can advance all your units towards the enemy, you can pull them back a bit, and then you can reset them to wherever they were initially. So that's deployment. So in targeting all of this jazz, we have so many units, and note that our 4 reinforcement points brought in other units. We have our hero here. He is a beast. And then the hero for our reinforcing army hasn't shown up yet. As for targeting, when it comes down to this many units, it's safe enough to let the AI do it themselves. What you would want to do is when units get wounded, like change them to defensive or hold position and tell them to move out. That's your job as commander. So note the gray bar above the green here. The gray is their 520 fortification health each. Okay, remember that forests take 1 extra turn to move through, and that flying units ignore that. Now, one thing to note about general strategy, remember that the proliferators, when they hit a unit, they will cause that unit to, if it dies, come back as a battleborn in your favor. So we have a ring of regeneration here. Regeneration will trigger either after the first time you attack or counterattack, so after the first time you would have taken damage, or after you move. And for necrophages who cause disease, note that the disease happens the first time the enemy interacts with either a disease-causing unit or does something, and it happens before they attack even, so it can actually preemptively kill them. Okay, so one thing to note is that these city tiles give 1 morale in addition to the standard morale a unit would have. Remember that morale comes from units being next to each other, and that ranged units suffer penalties. That is, they lose 1 morale for having enemies next to them, whereas other units do not. So we're going to take our 30 seconds to think about this. So here, you can tell we have morale. It's equivalent to the number of ticks here, and each point of morale is 15% extra attack and defense, which is a big bonus. Just 1 point of morale is quite a bit. Note that this guy is suffering negative morale. Here, this one is parasited for the next 4 turns. If it dies within that period, we'll get an extra unit at the end of the battle. And then there, that's the disease damage. Disease is 10% of a unit's health, and if the unit dies, it spreads the disease to all adjacent units as well. In general, you can counter units to fight fairly well on their own, but early on in the game, you really want to shepherd them and not use the auto combat resolution, because they will, you'll often end up losing units that you could have saved through easy means. Especially, it's not good at taking into account units that have area of effect attacks of some sort. The AI isn't, that is. So against units that like have chain lightning or circular attacks, the AI is really dumb. So here we have our melee units. You see they can't all get into position. Note that forests increase your defense, and being on a higher level than your opponent, higher elevation, increases your offense. Of course, depending on your attack versus their defense, you have different chances to do a critical hit, a standard hit, a miss, or a critical miss. So critical miss always does 0 damage. A miss does half of a standard hit, and a critical hit I think does 50% more damage. The maximum chance for a critical hit is 20%, and it maxes out when you have twice as much attack as your opponent's defense. The chance for a miss and a critical miss scale down. I think they start, if you have an even amount of attack and defense, you have a 10% chance to get a critical miss and a 40% chance to simply miss. Or it might be 30, and then the 10%. Yeah, I think it's 30% on top of the chance to critically miss. So, yeah, so the different type, having a high attack is really good. Even if you have a high damage, if you have no attack, it's often going to be wasted, which is really important to keep in mind. Also remember, initiative determines the order in which things attack. When you are doing battles, I find it's too easy to focus on the field here. What you should really do is when you give orders, you should base them on the initiative of the enemy for the most part. Here's our second hero who joined us. Note that if they had a governor, the governor also joins in the battle. And of course your governors there's nothing stopping them from being high level. So there we finally broke through that unit's defense. And I think that was the last one. So note that we would have swarmed over them incredibly quickly if they did not have that 520 extra fortification. As is, I think it took us all of the rounds. Another thing, here at the end, note that we killed 5 units and we got 5 cadavers. That's unique to the necrophages. It'll tell you how many cadavers you got, and for every 8 cadavers you get a recycled stockpile. So we already had 3 or more cadavers in the bank. So this will tell you if you get a new recycled stockpile. So that's unique to the necrophages, but a good thing to keep in mind. Because then we could go and we could immediately boost the food income of one of our cities. Note that we have experience per unit, 10 XP. The fewer units you bring into battle and the more units you kill, the more XP you get. The amount of XP a unit gives is something like 10% of its production cost, plus 20% for each level that unit has. So this has been a kind of short overview of what I would call a advanced combat with a bunch of units, so you can see exactly how later, mid to late game combats can play out. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. If you got anything out of this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. And if you know my call sign, you'll know that it's all downhill from here.